welcome back to the podcast with me, your host, Pete Tigers. Are you doing well? Are you catching a few fish? I really, really hope so. My guest today is Steve Bircumshaw, who fishes the streams around the Bakewell area, the Wye, the Derwent, the Lathkill. We get an insight into his fishing career and a little bit beyond that as well. I love his enthusiasm and passion for fly fishing that is going to rub off on all of you who are listening today. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Here we go. Steve, it's great to have you along on the podcast. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, thank you. I'm fully mobile now, of course. I've had a new knee inserted, and I'm back on the bank with a vengeance.
That's wonderful to hear. And I guess with an operation like that, it's quite serious and takes a bit of time to get over. Does that mean that you timed the operation so that it didn't get in line with the fishing season? So you had it done off season?
Well, I was very lucky because I was offered the operation in January. I do a load of grayling fishing, so it came at the right time, back end of grayling season. Got it all done, and it gave me... I wanted to get ready for the new season, so I worked very hard to do that. And I did all my exercises and etc. And I'm back, like I say, I'm fantastic. No pain. I can fish pain-free. I go with Jack quite a lot, as you know. Jack was fed up with me moaning about my bad knee every time especially later in the day. So, yeah, all good, thank you. Very good, positive.
Good. And are you taking it easy on it? Do you have to be a bit more careful, or you're just up and running and all is good?
Well, put it this way, I'm not wading with a stick, which I should be, but no, I'm fine. It's just 100 times better. And I'm acting pretty normal. It's just photographing fish. I can't really kneel on that particular knee, so that's the only problem. But, yeah,
well,
everything's great.
You know the secret to that is don't catch any fish then.
Well, I'll try my best.
So for listeners, can you tell us where you're based and what that means from a fishing perspective?
Well, I'm based in the perfect place, really. I'm very lucky. I'm based in Enza, which is a small village in Chatsworth Estate. And I'm a member of Chatsworth Angling Club, so fly fishing, and I'm a member of the Peacock Fly Fishing Club. So basically, within minutes, I can be on the Derwent, Wye, Lathkill, Bradford. I'm in a perfect place, and I can be down in the shop 7 minutes from my house to the car park. So I'm in a perfect place.
And having so many wonderful rivers and stretches and clubs nearby, does that mean, how do you go about thinking where you're going to fish? Does that revolve around weather? Does it revolve around hatches? What makes you decide to go to the Chatsworth, say, over the Peacock or the Derwent? What influences those decisions?
It depends. If I'm just after a couple of power hours sort of thing, I go to the closest place, which is Chatsworth. There's so much diversity in the fishing in this area. So each river is so different, and each actual beat quite often, and each pool, believe it or not. So I look at weather, I look at wind, I look at whether I need to wade or not. In high winds, it's nice to wade because you can go across instead of fighting the wind, you can actually make it work for you. On the Wye, of course, there's no wading, so I pick the place where the wind will be more favourable. So if it's over your back, say it's coming from the east or whatever, I try and look at where I go to. Although the Wye winds a lot, so you've got big horseshoes and you can move around a corner, it's over your back. But the weather, quite often, condition of river, of course. The Derwent runs off quicker than the Wye when we've had some floods, so... Yeah, it's just a number of things, and what kind of fishing I want to do. So if I want today's technical dry fly fishing, the Wye is the place, or the Lathkill. It's like very technical, and you've got to really think about what you're doing. So all these things come, and also depending on the grayling fishing, the Derwent's probably got a bigger head of grayling, but they're not as big. They don't grow as big. So I would say a 38, 39 centimetre grayling on the Derwent doesn't weigh as much as the Y grayling, but the long and thin sort of thing. But it's all relevant because on that river, a pound and a quarter grayling is the equivalent to a £1.12 £2 grayling on the Y. So and also we do travel by. I know I'm jumping in maybe, but the same length of fish and girth is usually more girth in Scotland or Wales. So it depends what kind of fishing we want to do. If we're after specimen grayling in this area, the Y is the place.
That's lovely. That's given us a really nice snapshot into the fishing that you have. And it was really interesting that while you were talking, I was thinking about I'm heading up to Stockbridge on Thursday. We're going to do a rod test for the magazine during the day. Then we're going over to the Orvis store, who the guys there I'm sure you're going to know as well. But Stockbridge is sort of known for the history there and the fishing and the chalk streams. But I often say, and I think when I was up last, that where you are around that Bakewell area is very, very similar in many respects from a historical standpoint and the importance of it from a fishing perspective, but also the culture of fishing in the area is very similar, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. It's deep-rooted and goes back a long way. We are obviously very good friends with the Orvis people at Stockbridge. And Marie, this was an Orvis shop, although I didn't work in the shop, by the way, when it was Orvis. I came in when they went independent. So yes, it's very, very similar, and we're very passionate about it and protective about our rivers and all the culture surrounding the fishing, the fly fishing around here.
And it seems to me as well that you mentioned the shop. For listeners, that's Malin and Green in Bakewell, which we've done some gatherings there. We've done some podcasts there. That Marie and John have really made the shop the hub for the fishing community, haven't they? And you're very much part of that as well, aren't you? You're often on the social media giving reports on the river and lots of other stuff too. And they really have built it a hub for anglers, haven't they?
It's amazing what they've done, really. Yeah, I mean, we've got two, obviously the Peacock Fly Fishing Club and Jan. We've got very close relations with them. They've made a fantastic place. We've got an incredible, what can I say, a group of keen, passionate anglers. The shop is the central hub for a lot of it, of course. The community is unbelievable. We've got a great fly fishing community, and the shop is a great place to meet, talk. I'm well in touch with, because I fish so much, I fish 3 or 4 times, I would say 4 times minimum, if I can, a week, including evening sessions after work, etc. It's a perfect place, and they've done a remarkable job. And as is Jan, as you know, on the Peacock fly fishing. Yeah, we're very lucky, and long may it continue.
Yeah, props off to Jan, who's been on the podcast a few times as well for what he's done at the Peacock. And before we move on to fishing, is it a dream job working in a fly fishing tackle shop?
I absolutely love it. It's so different to what I've done before. So I don't know whether you know about what I did, but I was an electrician. I've always fished. We'll get to that in a bit. And then I got an opportunity. I've always been a bass player, a musician, and I was in a band for 18 years. So I packed my job in, basically. My wife, we took a chance. I was self-employed and thought, well, if it fails, I can always go back to it. And I ended up being a musician for 18 years for a job. When I got too old for it, which we all did at the same time, it's very draining. Travel, been all over Europe, all over, well, more than Europe. We've been all to Qatar and Abu Dhabi and all that lot. But always came back to fishing. So different to the job I did. And I used to be actually sometimes playing when towards the end of tours or whatever, thinking about where I was going to go fishing when I got back. It's never left me, the fishing. And this is a dream job now because Marie, as soon as I was just a customer actually, but as soon as we finished with the band, she said, "Do you fancy doing a few days in the shop?" I'm a self-employed person, so I think my actual job description is a consultant, which sounds really posh, but I talk fly fishing all day and sell gear, and I just love everything about it.
That's lovely. And we're going to come on to the music thing very, very shortly because while you were speaking, I know the backstory a little bit, but wanted to bring that up. But if I worked in a tackle shop, I think the biggest problem I would have is that after a day's work, I'd probably get billed by the shop because I'd want to buy so much stuff. Have you got through that, or do you have that situation where you think, "Oh, actually, that's nice. I'm gonna buy that"?
I've got a bit of both. I've got through it really. You've got to because well, it's obvious the reasons why. Uh, you end up spending all your money on the on gear. I've got loads of gear, but I'm very lucky in that I get chance to I get samples of gear. I've got all the stuff that I need really, but every time a new rod comes out or a new type of tippet, I want to know what it's like. But the shop actually offers a service. We do lend stuff out. We've got reels loaded, different lines. People ask me about what line, what taper, and we've got that many lines in the shop that I like to try them, and I like to know what I'm talking about. I talk very honestly about gear as a fisherman in general. I don't like hard selling, sort of pushing people into stuff they don't want. So, yes, in answer to your question, I've got over it, but what can I say? I still obviously desire new things when I pick them up and give them a wiggle. As in Diamondback, I don't know whether we're talking brands, but when Diamondback came in, me and Jack had quite a bit of contact with Ben Bangham, and we ended up getting the Diamondback rods in. And straight away I bought two, even though I didn't need to, because there's just another. When new technology comes in, it's usually. Every brand, to be honest, has got good rods now. Technology's moved on so much from when I was first started. Of course, there's not many bad rods out there. What we do find is that people like a brand, and it's hard to get people off their brand. So if they're an Orbis guy, you show them the options. But I want to know what people are buying, and I want to use them myself. So I'm lucky to be able to take stuff out and try it and comment on it, and just give it a good test. And same with different lines. There's that many lines, tippets. Jesus, we've got. I don't know how many types of tippet, and I do get given spools to try, and I can advise people, in my opinion, and then they make their own mind up in the end. So, I've got over it, but I'm still incredibly interested in new technology and new brands.
And you make a really interesting point about all the reels with the lines on, because they can make a difference to a rod. And I often say that, what I like and what you like may be two different things, but tweaking, changing lines that may be appropriate for the fishing conditions you do, or your casting stroke, or whatever it may be, it can make a hell of a difference to a rod for people, can't it?
It makes a real difference, and it can transform a rod, the correct line, or go the opposite way. What we will do if people want to try something, we've got a load of demo lines on cheap reels, and we'll walk down into Bakewell. If people want to try different rods, we sometimes take 2 or 3 rods down and 2 or 3 reels and lines, put a piece of wool on, and they can cast in park if it's not too busy. Or we've got a little piece of river that Jan said we can, as long as nobody's fishing, of course, we can put a piece of wool on and have a cast. And it's one of the. I don't know whether many shops do that, but we're very trusting normally of people, and we'll let them take stuff out and try, demo stuff out and try. So I think it's a really good thing that we offer at this shop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And interesting, you talk about tippets. And I think on a previous podcast, I was talking about the trout hunter leaders, which I know you guys have there, which I bought a bunch of last time I was up. And I'd bought them. And then Don Stasica, who I respect greatly, said that they were really, really good. And I've actually bought some of the, from you guys online, actually, some trout hunter tippet. And I like that too. That's kind of nice stuff.
Yes. Well, to be honest with you, my basic setup, it consists of trout hunter tippet. I actually construct my own tapered leaders because I fish very long leaders for dry fly, 18 to 22 foot. And the recipes that we use can affect the way that it turns over. It's very, very important. But the trout hunter tapered leaders, we sell loads of them. They just do the job. It's just that I prefer to fish really long leaders. And it suits my kind of fishing, and I think the advantages. But obviously, with trout hunter tippet, the Rennie Arabs especially, you can, the tapered leaders, you can modify them by buying a size up and then adding on to your final piece of tippet, which is basically trout hunter to start for me. 6x now at this time of year, 5x for mayfly, 7x if it gets tough. But I like somewhere to go. So if you understand me, if the fishing's incredibly difficult and technical, as in fishing small midges in flat water in the evening and you don't know what the fish are taking, then we actually use a brand called Umpqua, which I don't know whether you've heard of it, Stratos, which is a camo. It's got a slight dotted camouflage. In fact, it's so camouflaged, it's quite hard to tie when you're my age. I need a black background because it just dissolves into the. But it's fantastic stuff. But my trout hunter stuff, my basic starting, and sometimes I never come off it. But I do like somewhere to go because I used to coast fish quite a lot with Matthews, and we used to scale down if it gets hard. You know what I mean? And with trout fishing, of course, it's the same. Smaller flies, smaller tippet, better presentation. But of course, if you don't need to, trout hunter for me it's my go-to. It's my basic 6x, 7x, 5x, maybe even 4x for mayfly when they're really having it because you can turn your bigger flies over.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And you need to get the Umpqua on the website because I was looking for it at the weekend and I don't think it's on there at the moment. So right. I was thinking about giving that a go, but I couldn't find it on the website. Yeah, no, I will get some, or when I'm up next, I'll go from there. But before we move on to fishing, you talked about playing in a band, and I was thinking about it. The band that you played in, you're a relatively young man comparable to the real band themselves, aren't you? Do you want to tell listeners about it?
Well, basically, I was in a band. My first gig in 1977. I was 17, so. But we went down the route of trying to get a deal with record companies, and we played loads of gigs. We wrote all our own stuff, and then basically we turned a deal down, which could have been a big change for everybody with a big record label. Well, it turned out to be big. We turned it down because we wanted more money. But anyway, it didn't happen. And then I ended up having kids. And in 1990, I think, I sold all my band gear, concentrated on work and fishing, of course. And then my wife, actually, after 12 years, when kids had started school, she bought me a Fender Precision bass I've always been a bass player, by the way. And I started again in a pub band sort of thing, and then we started in a tribute band. Started earning a few quid, and we got a Mick Jagger came on the scene. I used to do jam nights at a pub, and this lad walked in, and it was Mick Jagger at 20 odd years old. Unbelievable. And so we thought, tribute band, and we started Rolling Stones tribute, which took off. We ended up getting a deal with an agent for playing theatres. but you couldn't work and be in a band. You just can't do it. It was too demanding. It took too much time. So I packed work in. My wife said, "Look, let's go for it." We sold up, paid the mortgage off, paid all our debts off, and decided to rent. And this was a big change in our lives because it took the weight off, as in mortgage interest rate, and you're a bit more in control. But it allowed us to get some properties that would have been unaffordable to us and live in some lovely places. And this is how I've ended up. It's all part of the journey, really. We've ended up living in a beautiful place because we rent, and we're really comfortable with it. But the band took off, and we ended up doing 100 gigs a year. And then 20 years later, 2 years ago, we called it a day. It had run its course, and it started getting a bit more like a job than a hobby. And also, if I'd have carried on, I wouldn't be sat here talking to you because, of course, you get in band situations when you're on tour, you drink too much, you party too much. Unfortunately, we weren't the real Stones, and we were always professional. But on your downtime, you tend to take it easy. But fishing it's always been there, always, and it was so different to what I was doing. So late nights, noise, meeting people, fishing was the escape. Go on the bank, early mornings. I got back into the river fishing after quite a while, a long layoff. Got into the Peacock, and I just used to think it was like heaven. 2 or 3 nights out, or even on tour. We've toured for 3.5 months in past. We've done Germany, all Europe, all sorts of places. But the fishing was coming home, to get me a Yeti flask out, tea, on the bank, didn't want to talk to anybody, just escape. And it's been fantastic and developed from there, really.
Absolutely love it. That's why I love these podcasts, that I get to speak with people like yourself and hear about the person. That's really a lovely part of this. And again, another amazing story. But let's zip back to the fishing. And how's your season been so far?
Well, I have to be careful what I say, Pete, but my season's been fantastic. But I've been very choosy about where I go. So we've had basically the start of the season. We've had a lot of easterly, nasty cold winds, and it's really affected I'm not saying the hatches, because even in terrible conditions, wind and cold, and the river temperatures, the Derwent didn't. I mean, the Wye's fairly constant, I think, due to how it's fed. But these easterly winds stop fish rising. It's just as if you could turn a switch. Any sort of westerly or abatement of the wind or southerly, the fish would start rising. But all the time, especially all these large darks, of course, Granham, they've been coming off with nothing eating them. And a lot of people come in the shop and talk about that, and it's the same for everybody. But you get a slight window of opportunity quite often. And I'm in the fortunate position of being able to take it. So if I look at the weather and think, whoa, here we go, it's amazing the difference it's made. It's like flicking a switch. Early season on the Wye has been it's been very tough. But people are still catching fish, but you get a small window of opportunity. First 2 or 3 sessions after my operation, I went on the Wye because there's no wading. And so I could walk without endangering myself, get my knee working again. And I struggled, but I was a couple of times I had Granham hatches, which lasted probably half an hour. And from nothing rising, I've had up to 7 fish rising in one pool. And then the Granham have gone, and it's just switched off again. So what you've got to do really is try and look at the conditions, or ring the shop, because I'm quite open with it all. If people ring up and say, what do you reckon? I'm travelling the 2 hours to get there, is it worth coming on, tomorrow or whatever? I'm very honest and try to advise them. But as we know, nature looks after itself. Fish are fish. You can never say one day is going to be the same. That's another thing. You've got to be really open-minded. And I would say that if you can put the time in, which I'm lucky enough to do, that's when you get your rewards. So going back to your question, I've had a brilliant season. And including yesterday, actually, I was guiding on Saturday. It was Friday. It was quite tough weather-wise. We had the easterly cold. But on the Derwent, you see, you can nymph fish. If they're not taking it up there, you can find fish down below. And I'm really into me Euro nymphing, so we had a good day. So yeah, great season so far. And yesterday I had one of those dream afternoons where it went warm, olives started piling off, yellow maize. I've had 2 fish on mayfly, by the way, last Saturday. Jack had 2 same day as well, same evening. So yeah, it's been a great season for me. And I had 4 really big brownies yesterday on Derwent. And I actually got broke for the first time, but it was my own fault because I'd got some damage. I'd just landed a big fish. I hooked an even bigger fish, which, I'm saying it's my own fault. I think I had a fault on my line. I think it had rubbed on a rock. So basically, I just kept to 5x. I've had a great season.
That's wonderful to hear. Many congratulations. And also, you've mentioned the M word. And I think that's when I was up last year for the Mayfly event that we had at the store there. And it's that time of year, isn't it? And again, we think of the chalk streams primarily, although we get Mayfly here. And I saw my first Danica Friday before last, which is early for us. The yellows have been around. I've seen a few of those. But that's an important part of the fishing for you guys there too, isn't it?
Very important, yeah. The river gets quite busy because we get guests and hotel people wanted to come up for Mayfly. And sometimes, like I had a call last year, I want to fish the Mayfly season. When shall I come? So I'm travelling from London. Well, of course, it's fairly difficult to say, but I would say the last week in May, first week in June really is Mayfly heaven, I would say the most. But you never know. And 2 years ago, I was fishing with Jack on Lathkill at the end of April, and we had a full-blown hatch, and they started eating them. And then I never saw one for 3 weeks after that date. You never know, but there are a few coming off, and once they've seen them, and sometimes they can't resist. Yeah, it's a big part of the season. Phil White, obviously, we sell the Phil White patterns. We've sold hundreds of them. We actually ran out last week, and luckily Phil came in we ran out on Friday. And it ties thousands. Poor old Phil, he must have a repetitive strain injury because it just keeps bringing boxes of 100 in. And yeah, and it is very important to this area. We get guests, so all the restaurants are. It's actually quite a big thing. Restaurants and hotels. It's a big thing, and it's a big part of the season.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, isn't it? I'm very much looking forward to it. I think I'm going to order some. I'll speak with you afterwards because I'll order some of that tippet, and I'll order some of the flies as well to try those out down in this neck of the woods. But you mentioned Euro nymphing and you mentioned grayling, and I just wondered, where does it stand for you? Is it trout and grayling, or is it trout or grayling? Which would be your favourite of the 2 species?
I can't. I'd say trout and grayling equal. I enjoy it just as much. I fish it in any weather in winter, within reason, of course, depending on the river. The only time I really stillwater fish is when rivers out of, because I did a lot of stillwater fishing at one time, trout fishing, is when the river's out of sorts, I'll go to stillwater. But I mean, I don't know whether you saw, I did a bit of a video for the shop last winter, and it was -7 when I got in car. I never got above -4. But with careful thought and thinking about your conditions and the fish getting a bit more dormant and where they're liable to be sat, I find it just as interesting as trout fishing, to be honest with you. And also, your watercraft really comes into play, because I haven't even talked about that yet, but it's very, very important. If you see fish rising, of course, you know they're there, and you try to catch them, you can cast to them. When you're grayling fishing in winter, you can't see anything, can't see any fish, so you've got to comb the area and use your watercraft to try and find a fish. And it varies so much because of the temperature. And then, of course, adapt your bead sizes of nymph, your tackle, just to suit that. So, equal, to answer the question, I love it just as much. I fished 3 or 4 times in cold winter weather a week, just the same as I do for trout in warm weather. But of course, it's nice to have a lightweight Orvis Sunstopper shirt on, or a Sims one, and be wandering around with your pack on in warm weather. But also, it's nice to have 6 layers of Patagonia on and get in river in winter, especially if you get a nice sunny, crisp day. I love catching in snow. We call them snow grayling. If we've got snow, we go out fishing in snow. It's so different, but it's just as enjoyable.
So tell me, Steve, where did the fishing career begin for you? Because I can see the passion burns as brightly as ever, but where did it all begin for you, and particularly your fly fishing career?
So it burns. I'm just like a kid still when I go fishing, to be honest. When I'm getting my stuff ready and thinking about it night before, I'm like a young boy. I started when I was just over 4 years old, and I'm 65, and it was coast fishing. It was my dad. He used to pick me up from school or take me fishing when he'd finish work on summer evenings. Mr. Crabtree was the thing. It was like he bought me the first Mr. Crabtree and Peter book when I was a kid. When I could read, I used to look at the pictures, Bernard Venables, lovely illustrations and paintings, and read the stories. And then I used to go fishing with my dad and try and catch. So in summer, a tench, say, I can remember my first tench fishing trip like it was yesterday. A lovely, warm, sultry summer evening. Looked at my mum bought me a float from Winfield, and I set it up Mr. Crabtree style lift method using bread, and caught my first tench. And I can remember it just like it was yesterday. And then, of course, as the seasons went on, we'd pick roach. My dad used to fish bread quite often on a local pond, and throw, we used to make his own ground bait, grind it up with a hand grinder and sieve it. And it all started when I was 4. And then I just fished whenever I could. My dad we used to be quite keen. And then I started golfing, made a mistake. So I used to try and do both, and then my relationship deteriorated because you can't really do both, seriously. And so I packed the golf in, and then my dad took golf up. I introduced him to golf, so we went our own different ways then. But we used to go caravanning. He had an old touring van, and get in his little car, and we'd be away, Vauxhall Viva or Victor. And fishing was always involved in the holiday. Incredibly, really. Everywhere we went, fishing tackle was in. It was mainly coast fishing. Then one holiday we ended up going to, my sister went to college in Ripon, near York. So they booked the site for a week on Slenningford Mill. I don't know whether you've heard of it, on the Ure River bank. And I put all my coast fishing gear in. My girlfriend went with us as well, by the way, and got there, and it was fly only. So I was devastated when we sat on this lovely river and it's fly fishing only. So what I did was go into the tackle shop in Ripon, explain to this gentleman tackle dealer, I'm new to fly fishing. Would you set me up for the River Ure? So this fantastic chap bought a fly box, a cheap Shakespeare rod, glass rod, 3 or 4 weight, maybe a 5 weight even then. They seem to be the trend. A good line, double taper, a box of flies, and away we went fishing. And I actually sneaked down I went into a field and put some wool on my tippet, and basically learnt myself to cast in an evening. And it was going dusk and nobody was about, so I went down onto the river. And I thought, I'll tie a fly on and have a go. Well, I shouldn't have, of course. I shouldn't say this, but... And I actually caught my first pound wild brown trout the same evening. By default, really, I was lifting off and one took it, but that was it, hooked. So every chance I got then, I was on a river fly fishing, usually holidays, but because it was quite tough to get into the clubs and quite expensive, as a beginner. And so I used to do a lot of still water fishing. I course fished. I was a really keen match angler, but we used to have a closed season, and everybody went trout fishing on either Lady Bower or Toff Newton, and then started course fishing again. And eventually, it petered out. I got all my tackle stolen, and I packed in fly fishing for quite a long time, and just carried on match fishing. I got into it in a big way. We were team fishermen, and I fished numerous Division 1 nationals But fishing, I mean, it was just in my blood. I just, every time I saw some water, my mum said when I was a kid she couldn't keep me out of puddles. We used to collect sticklebacks, frogs, newts in the day, take them home. We had a fish pond in garden. I used to catch perch and stick them in there. And it was just like in my blood. And then I moved house due to the band and this renting thing, and I met an angler who was a fly fisherman. And he said, "Do you want to come?" A new friend. "Do you want to come fishing with me, fly fishing?" He lent me some gear, and that was it. Bingo. I had second or third cast on a damsel nymph on a lake. I caught a fish. He'd not even walked to his own fishing position, and I caught another one, and I was hooked. Sold all my match fishing gear because we had a wheelbarrow with reeve box. You needed a flipping barrow to get to your peg. Carp fishing, same venues, that came into the equation. Muddy carp puddles, and I've had some big weights, but it just didn't do anything for me after I'd been fly fishing. And I just sold all my gear, my pole, had some really good gear. Well, we were actually sponsored for a while, but I just got rid of everything and packed it in, and fly fishing took over my life. And it is my life as well. It's apart from family and food and wine, of course. And then Marie offered me a few hours in the shop, and it just went from there. Really, it's taken over.
And it sounds to me, Steve, that your route was the traditional one, albeit, bar the excursion, but from a Stillwater to learn your trade on a little bit, would I be right there? And then you moved on to rivers, and was there, you said earlier that you like to fish lakes still and rivers, but was there a defining point that you thought, actually, it's the rivers that I really love?
Yes, I got taken as a guest when I started back on rivers, and there's so many different dimensions involved in river fishing, because you've got obviously the drift of your fly, the currents, the turbulent water. I mean, I would say that the way to start would be on a still water. I actually started on a river because of the circumstance, and I fished every day for a week. I fished fly. I caught a lot of dace actually in chub. More grayling than trout, but the odd trout. But I would say, for anybody starting, I would say start on still water. And so around here we're very lucky. We've got Press Manor with Bernie's place, and he gives lessons. He's a qualified instructor. He's got gear to lend people. We've got gear in the shop that we would lend. I would say start on still water, and then progress to rivers once you've learnt to cast and control your gear. For me, river fishing all day long now. But like I do enjoy still water fishing, and it's same with any kind of fishing. You can do things better. You can always learn to do things better. And some people have got the natural. They've got it in the blood. They just seem to be natural anglers. I'm very, very lucky to mix with a lot of very, very good fishermen who come in the shop. You're mentioning Don. John in the shop's a very, very competent angler and experienced. We get loads of people in, Peacock members, some really good anglers, and we all just bounce off each other. There is a bit of secretism, of course, but that's just natural, I think. But yeah, we all share information, and one of the things that is incredibly important, and I've touched on it, is watercraft. I think I'm very lucky in that because I started at a young age, I know where to look. If I'm looking for a riser, I've got a bit of an ability to know where to look. And some people need to learn that, how to act on the bank, where to position yourself when you're casting. Have a look at the water in front of you and what you've got and where you think the fish are, and take it from there. And then that goes obviously into your nymph fishing. Like I said, you've got to study the water and have a look where you think the fish might be sat and feeding, if they're feeding. Yes, so river fishing for me now, Pete, even though I do enjoy the odd excursion to Burnies, I go to Lady Bower. We're very lucky. We've got Pete's sorted Lady Bower out, and we've got a fantastic reservoir there, which is, luckily, these waters as well, they respond very well to dry fly fishing. Lady Bower's are great up in the water, terrestrial venue, so daddy longlegs and big, even traditional wet flies will work on there. Midges, of course, beetles. Burnies is good up in the water fishing. There always seem to be top 3 foot of Burnies at Press Manor. It's a great place to fish. So, yeah, that's about it, really. I forgot what the question was, but
Me too. But I think you answered it beautifully anyway. And you touched on, people will know how they'll sense how passionate you are about our pastime. And you mentioned some guiding earlier, that you were out on Friday doing some guiding, and that went well. And was guiding a natural progression for you?
I found, to be honest, that I was guiding when I wasn't guiding. So I'd be on. I did pretty well. I'm lucky enough to do. I've done all right. I've caught a few fish, and people start asking questions, and you give them flies. I tie flies. We'll get onto that, but guiding, it can be quite frustrating. I'm not really a good teacher, I'm afraid. I mean, my wife always said I'm too impatient, but I've learned as I've got older to be patient and to help people. And I'm always, even last night, I gave 3 or 4 flies away to a chap who was struggling. I'm answering questions if they want to ask me. There's no secrets. And the guiding just is a separate thing, really. If I'm asked to guide, I will guide. I don't do it too many times a year. I just do it when required. And this was actually, on Friday, was a prize which I was lucky enough to get a day for a charity auction for the disabled, fishing for the disabled, I think it's called, isn't it? We support that charity. And I was lucky enough, the Chatsworth Estate, the director gave me a day's fishing for 2 rods on Chatsworth, and so people bid for it, made a load of money, by the way. We arranged lunch for them, and we had a fantastic day, and they booked a day ticket for the day after on their own. So it was good for the hotel, 4 nights in a hotel. I meet some lovely people. I do a bit of guiding on the Peacock for Jan when required. Yeah, so it just goes along. I wasn't a natural guide, but now I just want people to have a good day. That's all I want. When I go guiding, I'll stay longer than I should sometimes, and I just want people to enjoy it. Simple as that. And if I can help them do that, I'm quite honest. I sometimes say, look, excuse me if I'm a bit sharp, when you mend, cast, mend, and we have some laughs. But yeah, I do. I enjoy it to a certain extent, but I find it frustrating.
Excellent. Well, let's move on to flies then, because you touched on those. What I'd love to know, Steve, is do you tie patterns that we all know, like let's use jingler, for example, or are you the sort of tyer who observes something and either tweaks a pattern, or you might take a pattern in a slightly different direction that suits the needs from something you've seen when you've been out on the river?
I'm the latter. So basically, this is my excuse when I talk to Jack about fishing. I tie fishing flies. I tie fish. I only sell flies that I use, unless somebody asks me to tie something. I'm not a tyer for the art's sake. I'm a practical tyer. I tie flies that I fish with and I'm successful with. And I tweak flies. I've actually developed a couple of patterns myself. Actually, Pete, there's not many flies that haven't been tied in the past or somebody's got the name to them. Sometimes you get a name for a fly. You might want to tweak it. I do a lot of tweaking. I've got a couple of new patterns. I've actually named one the Devonshire because I developed it for fishing on Chatsworth, because Chatsworth is actually stocked for the stock rainbows, which is another subject, by the way, which we could talk for a long time. It's not my cup of tea, but they live there. And if you don't want to fish a river with stockies in, don't fish it. That's all I can say. But some old people, they're a bit of a... Well, I'll go back to it. They want to nobble a fish and eat them. Well, we don't want people nobbling £3 wild brownies, which are very precious fish and wild fish. So the only good thing about it for me is that you can't kill wildies, brown trout at all, but you can take a rainbow if you want one for the pan. So that was why it was introduced, I think. The unfortunate thing is that they swim. So they will swim into waters that are not stocked and rewild. And I'm not going to go into it, but so some of these stockies, when they put them in, you can actually fill your boots, and I'm not into that. I think that if I catch 2 or 3 stockies on a pool, or I'm away, I leave them. And I try, one of the things I try to do is to target a fish. There's 1 or 2 people who I know do it, a wild fish, and I will spend a lot of time watching it, watch its rise form, see what it's eating, and eventually time my cast to try and catch that fish. But on Chatsworth, I found that they would take a more vibrant fly. Even the big brownies. I've no idea why, but I developed a fly, and I've named it the Devonshire after the estate. But basically, it's an immersion and a dun pattern. And it's just a different material that I use, a different body. And I've had a lot of success, and quite a few people have caught some big brownies on it, so. But basically, I tweak flies to suit what's happening. I've got a new fly, which is, I use a lot of CDC. I'm a big believer in CDC and looking after it while you're fishing it. So powder, Frog's Fanny or TM-Co brought a new good powder out. I use a lot of CDC, and I'm now started introducing a yellow CDC feather into my normal natural colours, which lightens the wing a bit. When you've got yellow May emergers, which they seem to want, they do eat the emerger, I think. There's a bit of a thing saying they don't eat duns, although I have seen fish eat yellow May duns. But it lightens the wing. It's easy to see for people who haven't got good eyesight, and I've found it incredibly successful. Just tying large dark olive duns with a yellow CDC feather incorporated. But I also like to cut the stems out as well of my CDC. So I use basically flies that fold, and the more you've got to maintain and manage them a bit. But I would say take time out, look after your fly, dry it off properly, powder it up, get it fit to it, and you can catch quite a lot of fish on one CDC fly. Whereas a lot of people, it starts sinking and they're changing the fly. So this is another thing, but I do tweak patterns and I try to develop my own patterns. I do overdress flies, wing-wise, quite often for people who can't see. And I've found that it makes very little difference to the performance, apart from they can see it better and it floats better. So I'll put three CDC feathers into a fly that normally would have 2 in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do tweak things, yeah. it's same with my nymphs. We all have an idea, when we're tying nymphs for Europe, well, for nymph fishing, you've got your own favourite pattern. But I think one of the main things, Pete, with fly fishing is confidence in what you're using. It's incredibly important. And if you're fishing a fly that you think's not going to work, you ain't going to catch anything. Whereas if you've got the fly on that you are confident with, you fish better, you concentrate more, and you've got more confidence.
That's a really good point. And also what you say about, the visibility of a fly as well. You're not going to fish it as confidently if you can't see it, are you?
No, you're not. People say if you can't see your fly, if a fish rises to where you think it is, you strike, you can wipe your pool out in one strike. If you're fishing for a clever big fish, I mean, they're big because they're clever, aren't they? They've been there for a while. And so you can actually do that and it not work. You've got to be able to see your fly. And this is one of the biggest problems, especially when you're guiding. I mean, you might fish and eventually get a rise and they're looking nowhere near the fly. And you say, yes, it's, I didn't see it. And it's incredibly important. So sometimes you have to incorporate a sighter in it. So a bit of, the coloured stuff like dry wing or whatever. There's different makes, isn't there? And put a sighter in. So same with beetles. If you're fishing beetles under a tree, foam beetles, have a sighter that you can see. And very rarely it affects the fish. I've got my own opinions on what fish can see, because people said they can't see the wings and that, but I'm not so sure. But yeah, so seeing your fly is very important.
Tip. And actually I was fishing a size 20 something yesterday, lifted when I thought the fish ate my fly and it wasn't, and that moment passed. And I thought I was on him, and it resonated with me the moment that you said that. But some lovely points there. Steve, what else have you got planned for the year?
Well, to be honest with you, it's like being on holiday every day at present. I've not got a lot of plans. I'm not going abroad. I've been abroad fishing a couple of 3 times. I've been to Bosnia, of course. Everybody's got to tick that box, I think. Fish the Ribnik, fantastic river. But I'm quite happy. We do actually have stays in Scotland and Wales every now and again. We'll go grayling fishing. I've got some big ideas about going trout fishing on salmon rivers, because quite often they're untouched trout wise. I've got an opportunity in a bit to fish the Tweed and Spey on venues that aren't trout fished, and there's some massive trout in there, and grayling, by the way. But I've not got any real plans, to be honest. I'm quite, what can I say, adaptable. If somebody's got any ideas, then I'm supposed to be going there. Have you heard of Steve Shorrock? You will have. He's working for Fulham Mill now. Steve's manager for Fulham Mill, and he's got access to some grayling fishing in Scotland. But I do like fishing in Scotland on the Annan, Clyde, River Dee in Wales. I like new venues, and I like a challenge, and it's so wild up there. I've been on TV as well, which I actually go to salmon on you to weight your nymphing gear. So I have no plans this year. We'll just wait and see what happens, and if I get a window of opportunity, I've got 2 or 3 mates, me and Jack Westbury, who I fish a lot with Jack, and I've done for years. Alex Haywood. Alex used to be an member of Ovis staff. We've got a little group called the Grayling Specimen Group on WhatsApp. And so I like to get out, but I'm very happy where I am.
That sounds perfect to me. Interesting you mentioned the Ribnik and Steve Shorrock, because in the June edition of the magazine, he's given us a fly pattern. So there's a fly pattern in there. So while we're recording this, I'm once we're done, about to finish off and put that one to bed. And then we start thinking of the July one. And I've got to do a shameless plug now that if you're interested in having a look at trout and salmon, and we're trying to change content in there as well, so that each issue's new and looks a little bit different with new writers as well, that if you want 20% off, if you go to the website and you put FC2025 or FC2025, you'll get 20% off. So that's my commercial. Sorry about that one, Steve, but I thought I'd get that one in there. It reminded me when you talked about the Ribnick, and it's quite tricky fishing by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've only been once, to be honest, and I got a chance to go this year. I had some other things planned. It is tricky, yes. It's quite heavily fished. It's the clearest water I've ever seen, apart from Lathkill, maybe. We've got a few customers in, so there might be a bit of background noise. You're all right? You're fine. You're fine. Yeah, so basically, it's quite heavily fished, but it's a fantastic river, and it's so full of fish. I've never seen as many fish in my life, honestly. I mean, I had one occasion when I'd got 25 grayling up to £3 in one on my right hand side of some weed, and 35 on the other side.
Jeez.
And if you took the reflection off the water and sunlight away, it's as if there's no water in it. It's hypnotising, really. It's so clear. Very technical fishing. Same with dry fly. You've got to really, really think about what you're doing, and a massive advantage which I've found, and it's same over here really, is downstream dry fly fishing with long leaders, because the first thing they see if you're doing it properly is the fly. They've seen no tippet. You've got to look after your leader. You've got to get rid of that shine off your leader, so some mud on it or whatever, and you've got to get it sinking, that last last bit of your actual tippet. All the rest of your leaders got to float. This is the thing I'm on about all the time. From junction with fly line, right down your tapered leader to your last piece of usable tippet, which is usually about 4 foot, it's got to float. Because if you start ripping that off water when it's sunk, you miss fish. In fact, you stop getting risers. I've noticed it. It's a clue. If you stop getting risers and you think you should be, check your blooming leaders floating, because it's affected so badly by if it goes subsurface. And I think that's a really good tip. And leave the last bit to do what it wants. Try to get that last bit sinking if you can, but it's sometimes hard to break through surface tension. But you want the rest of it floating so you can see it and control it, and not let the water control it.
Perfect. Great tip. Great tip, Steve. Thank you for that. Do you have a dream destination?
I've got 2 boxes I'd like to tick, but whether or not I'm getting too old for it is I'd like to fish for tarpon, of course, permit, jacks, abroad, Cuba or Mexico, or I've been to Florida fishing actually, but I didn't fly fish. I've been fishing for sailfish. I've had some big sailfish, but using small pilchard live baits. But I'd like to fly fish for some of and bonefish as well, of course. Whether or not it'll happen, I don't know. But I'm also anchoring to do some saltwater bass fishing, which I've never done. I fish for bass with lures, and I've always been a holiday fisherman, so we go to Wales every year. We have done for 40 odd years. Kids all go as well. Well, they're not kids anymore, and we always fish for mackerel and pollock and stuff. Taupe, I fish for taupe as well, and had some nice taupe. But any kind of fishing really, Pete. But the boxes I want to tick are bass fishing and mullet fishing, saltwater, and of course there's the Orvis Festival every year, which will be an opening. Like-minded people, I think, and also maybe some warm water, saltwater fishing.
I think that's a nice mixture of stuff. Knowing you a little bit, I think you'll really enjoy the mullet side of things as well. So I think I'm heading along to the Orvis do at some stage over the weekend as well. I think I'm interviewing Pete Kutzer from Orvis as well. So that should be fun. But yeah, no, I think you'll enjoy that. Well, we're just coming up an hour now. And I wanted to ask you the tricky question of the podcast. for our mythical playlist, it's on Spotify, but I've not updated it for ages, so I apologise deeply for that. But what would be the song that you've got that short drive to the river? What's the song that sets the tone for you for that day's fishing? What sets the background music for that journey?
This is a complicated one. So there was a song by a band called Shed 7. I don't know whether anybody knows it. There's a song called It's Getting Better. So that's one of my songs. But if it was an all-time I've got to choose, and I've got thousands and thousands of songs up there because I've been through every genre of music, and I've played in bands from funk bands to punk bands to rock and roll bands to blues bands. I've played bass guitar for a long time, and I've played with some superb musicians. But my all-time favourite has got to be Jumping Jack Flash. I just think it does it. The original recording has got everything that a song needs for me, and I never tire of hearing it.
That's a very, very good choice and a very, very good way to start winding things down now. Steve, you've said so many wonderful things on this that people are going to want to reach out to you. How do they find you? What's your social handles and how do people find you?
Instagram's the one, really. I had a few bad experiences on Facebook, to be honest. You get this keyboard warrior stuff. You get people saying stuff when they've been sat drinking all night and start talking a load of, proverbial. So I'm not a Facebook man, I'm afraid now. I think it had too many negatives for me. Some good stuff, of course. It's not all negative, but the thing about it is you might get 200 good comments and the bad one stands out and hurts, doesn't it? And it got to a point where I was starting to get into arguments, and we were talking about meeting in car park, It got that bad, and I thought, I don't need this in life. So Instagram, I find it, although some people use Insta like Facebook at times, but I think Instagram's the way, and also via Malin and Green, because we're very closely related. Everybody in shop, with great people work in shop. The girls are fantastic. Got Sam, Elaine, Debs, Marie, of course, who's the boss, and she is the boss, let me tell you. John's the other boss. John's a fantastic fella, and we're all just like family, really. And then we've got Chad Critchley, Don. Jack's doing some work in shop now for us. So either via shop, in social media, or for personally Instagram. I think it's a really great media, Instagram. Of course, you get friends from, Instagram friends from Italy, France, all over the world. And you can actually pick the ones that you want to keep, can't you? So you know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just Steve Bircumshaw fly fishing and fly tying and fly fishing, I think. Yeah.
Well, look that one up, folks. Give him a follow. One of Fly Fishing's good people. So go search him out. Steve, I want to say a huge thank you for being a guest on the podcast today. I've really, really enjoyed hearing about your story and your love of fly fishing.
Well, thanks very much for asking. Yeah, I do think that I can't believe that an hour's gone, by the way. You said time will fly. I can't believe it. But yeah, it's been great. And it's nice to share some of these moments, isn't it? And to try and give people, if you can give people inspiration and a bit of advice to make their day better, then that's the way forward.
Definitely. Well, thanks, buddy, very much indeed.
And this is a great way of doing it, by the way. So thanks, Pete. See you soon.
Well, everyone, this has been another episode of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's a lovely story, and Steve's enthusiasm rubs off on everyone. And I hope wherever you are listening to this, perhaps you're traveling fishing, perhaps you're going to work but thinking about fishing, I hope this has been a nice accompaniment to that. So thanks very much for listening. There'll never be any charge for these. It's just lovely to be able to talk about something we all love so much. There'll be plenty more coming very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to the Fly Culture Podcast, brought to you in association with the Voice of Game Angling, Trout and Salmon, where Pete is the editor.